Hey friends, welcome back to Embrace the Question. Steve here, and we are going to hit the next chapter in our Bible Study with Me series. We're in Genesis still, chapter 9. We are starting chapter 9 today. If you are new here, welcome. If you would like to start maybe at the beginning, you're welcome to do that. There is a Bible Study with Me playlist on the channel, and you can start at the very beginning. We have probably 15 videos at least to get us to chapter 9, so we're not breaking any speed records. We're going to just take this and split it up as to what seems normal, like a normal study. Okay, we're not going to do too much at a time, but we're going to take our time and try to do it as much justice as we can. So I hope you're subscribed to the channel. I invite you to do that. Let's get started with Bible Study with Me, Genesis chapter 9. All right, once again, reading out of the English Standard Version here, and we will take a look at words as we are prompted to do so in the Greek or in the Hebrew. We'll switch over to the King James with the Strong's numbers if we need to. All right, Genesis 9 verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens and upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. And for you and for your lifeblood I will require a reckoning. From every beast I will require it, and from man. From his fellow man I will require a reckoning for the life of man. All right, let's take our 5 verses and go over those. This should have caught your eye immediately. God blesses Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Where have we seen that before? Every time we have a new beginning, that's the command. Be fruitful, multiply. We've got a good thing going here. I want you to replicate. Okay? This concept of multiplication is something that a gardener understands, and God is our gardener. He understands that when you have one plant that produces fruit, it's better to have many plants that produce fruit. Jesus was a multiplier. He took the bread and the loaves, and he did what? He fed 5,000 people with them. So Jesus himself is a multiplier. This is something that when we're looking for it, we get to see it a lot in Scripture. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Okay, the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens, upon everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. This is again similar to God telling Adam and Eve, have dominion. Everything belongs to you. You have dominion over the garden. Okay, but until this point, the animals had not been afraid of man. How would you like to live in such an environment? Animals not afraid of man, and we're talking about some big animals, I believe, bigger than what we have now. The scholars think that everything grew bigger before the flood. Everything grew bigger, not just animals, but man too, perhaps. We're just structurally bigger because the environment was more conducive to growth. So the very thought to me of living in a world where no animals are afraid of you, they didn't have a reason to be naturally, but this is the start of that. The fear and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every bird of the heavens. Perhaps then Noah did have a bigger part to play in the wrangling up of some of the animals. He certainly could have. He would not have had to chase them down. Okay, every moving thing that lives, verse 3, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I give you the green plants, I give you everything. Okay, I want to stop right there as well, because we are not fully into we're not fully into this difference between clean and unclean. They exist because we had seven pairs of clean on the ark, and one pair or two of the unclean animals on the ark. So there was already this distinction. There was already this rule. We know that Adam was in a covenant with God. And with every covenant, there are covenant provisos. There are covenant stipulations. This is the contract rules of the covenant. And that is, there are going to be certain things you can do, certain things you can't do under our covenant. One of those things here is now being stipulated, which is you can eat anything. I'm giving you green plants. I'm giving you everything. Even as I gave you green plants, I'm giving you everything that can be, you can eat it. You can eat it. We know this changes, right? Because Moses comes along and they are given yet another covenant on Mount Sinai. And with that covenant will come more stipulations. You're not going to be able to eat unclean animals. Now in Noah's covenant, it appears that we can. So that is of interest. But there is yet another stipulation here, verse 4. You cannot eat flesh with its life in it, that is, its blood. He expounds on that. For your lifeblood, I'm going to require a reckoning from beast and from man. We'll just take verse 6 here because it applies. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. So there we have the reason. There is a sacredness about the blood. It carries the life. The blood is where the life exists in this realm. So the blood is special. Now we understand a bit why the Jewish people particularly were so repulsed by Jesus when Jesus stood in front of them in the book of John and said, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, then you can have no part of me. He's giving them an offense to see if they can persist, see if they can get through the offense of what he's saying to discover the life of what he's saying. Only those who can endure the offense will find the life. There's a lot of things in this book, in this Bible, in this compilation that is offensive, especially to the flesh. But now we see here where that came from. This has been passed down since Noah. Definitely of interest. Much is starting here, right? Don't eat the flesh with its life. If you're going to slaughter a lamb, you have to drain the blood first. The blood belongs to God. Okay, let's continue on. I will reread verse 6. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. This is the start of an eye for an eye. Again, we're talking about covenant. We're not talking about a law being passed down, but these are the stipulations of the covenant. And you, be fruitful and multiply, increase greatly on the earth, and multiply in it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. Okay. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For God made man in his own image. God is taking this very seriously. The whole concept of covenant with God was risky from the get-go. And we are very, very close now, approaching the story of Abraham, who goes into a covenant with God also, the Abrahamic covenant. Only Abraham is not excited about it. You might figure that. He's not excited at all. Why? Because he knows that there is no weakness on the part of God to satisfy his part of the covenant. A covenant was always two parts. The part of both teams had a part to keep in the covenant. So Abraham was one side, God was the other. Abraham knew God's not going to fail. So if anybody fails, it's going to be me, and that means I'm the one that's going to have to pay the price of failure. The price of failure in one of these blood covenants is never good. It's always the destruction of the side that fails. And Abraham was terrified. I can't tell. We aren't given a real feel on Noah here. But he knows he's going into a covenant with God. It doesn't appear that he's got anything too difficult to do to keep his part of the covenant. Don't eat animals with the blood in them. Well, he's not used to eating animals at all, apparently. So that's not probably going to be very difficult for Noah. If a man sheds the blood of a man, well, guess what? That man has to die by the hand of man. That's pretty tough. And Noah probably can't really envision a time where that's going to affect him and his sons, because they're the only ones on the earth at this point. So I don't think Noah's too concerned at the moment. He's probably thinking, if this affects part of my family, it's way down the line. And God says to Noah and his sons, I'm going to establish my covenant with you and your offspring and with every living creature that is with you. See, the post-flood covenant, the Noahic covenant, was also with the creatures. So I am not going to destroy the earth by flood. Not in this way. Personally, let me give you something that I wrestle with. There are a lot of people that believes that, and I understand this, and I think I've mentioned this, that the world will at some point be destroyed by fire. Revelation talks about this. I have a problem with my understanding of that verse because of this chapter. It doesn't seem to me within the character of God to say, I'm going to make a covenant with you and all the creatures of the earth that I will never again destroy you with a flood, only to turn around and torch the entire planet because, hey, it wasn't a flood. You see what I'm saying? That is not the character of God. I have issues with my understanding of these words, and I know people that they just cling to that understanding, and it bothers me. They might be right, because even if I know all ends, I still have trouble reconciling a lot of it. So I'm not coming down on people because of the understanding that they have. But this verse gives me pause. This verse gives me pause. God is making an agreement with man and creation that he is not going to destroy the entire world in this way again. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward and see if maybe we can get some more clarity on what God is going to do. You guys remember The Chosen and The Chosen videos, and I'm always reminded of Jesus's interaction with Nicodemus on the rooftop. And Jesus is saying, unless you're born again, and Nicodemus is freaking out. He's like, how can I, once again, being my age, enter again into my mother's womb, who is, it was a funny scene because his mother was obviously deceased, right? He's like, I'm out of luck if that's the requirement. That's called being born of water. But there is a second type of being born again, or, Yeah, it's a second type of being born again where it's being born of the Spirit, and that is not a water birth. See, here we have a water birth of the earth. But John the Baptist told his followers, he said, I baptize you with water. I can dunk you, and you are going to be wet. But coming after me is someone who will baptize you with fire. See, we have water first, fire later. And that is a spiritual fire, if you'll understand. And that's where I'm going with this whole revelation is I think we're reading it wrong. I think perhaps the part of the understanding that we're missing is that the fire baptism is a spiritual thing. And I know that the imagery isn't necessarily spiritual. It's very, very graphic, and it just seems so real. Perhaps so. But there is a water first and a fire second. Water first, fire second. And we're talking again about a new beginning. What happens when you accept Christ as Savior? Well, you become a new creature. You might get physically dunked in a baptism, a water baptism, but then there is this baptism of the Spirit, whom we get to see that for the first time in Acts chapter 2 when everybody's in the upper room and the Holy Spirit comes in with rushing wind and tongues of fire. So we're seeing the whole thing. We're seeing a water baptism and a Spirit baptism that always has something to do with fire. Fire in you, fire in your life. Sets your insides on fire, basically. Enough of that. Let's continue on. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And when I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. So now we have the covenant symbol is a rainbow. It's a rainbow. I know that there are groups on the earth that have tried to abscond with the rainbow and make it their sign. But I'm here to tell you that God is not giving that sign up. It is His. It belongs to Him. Part of the evil of trying to steal that sign is because we are told that in the days of Noah, every thought of man is evil. Okay, it's unnatural. It's not as God made it. Don't take my word for it. We're in a Bible study. We're leaving off on Genesis 9:15. We'll go to the extended search, Matthew 24 and Luke 17. All right, Matthew 24. No one knows the day or the hour, for as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Okay, this is a very heavy chapter, and we know most of us have read that particular chapter. Let's look at the Luke 17 one. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of the Son of Man. Likewise, just as it was in the days of Lot, they were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But on the day when Lot went out of Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from heaven and destroyed them all. So it will be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. That too is of interest. Everybody is taken out first. Noah is safely in the ark, then the flood comes. Lot is safely removed from Sodom, then destruction comes. That is something that we need to keep track of. There's one more here that we should take a look at. Look at this. Let's take a look at 1 Peter 3. What does this say? For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in his flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey, when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were brought safely through water. And then he goes on to talk about baptism, which we were just talking about. Let's go back to Genesis 9. Let's take the next 5 verses. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant which between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. The sons of Noah who went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. Okay. These 3 were the sons of Noah, and from these the people of the whole earth were dispersed. Noah began to be a man of the soil, and he planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine and became drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned backwards, and they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. All right, let's stop right there. What Ham did is not apparent by what we're reading here. Ham was apparently mocking his father or making fun of his dad after his dad had done this, after his dad had planted a vineyard, gotten drunk on the wine, passed out on the bed naked. Okay. But here's the lesson. As followers of Yahweh, as followers of Christ, our job is to cover, not to expose. And what is blessed is those who attempt in every way to cover the nakedness of others, the shortcomings of others, the failures of others. If we can do that, we were always going to be on the blessed side of things. It is, however, unfortunate that we as Christians often join in this mob mentality to uncover and expose, especially when we're talking about other Christians. And that is not the way to do it. There is a better way. Okay, so who was cursed? Who did Noah curse? Cursed be Canaan. Who is Canaan? That's Ham's son. Ham was not cursed. Canaan was cursed. What was the curse? We don't know. We don't know what the results of the curse were. But Canaan was cursed. And we know that the land of Canaan, the promised land, the land of Canaan, was inhabited by a people of giants. Perhaps they were mutants. I don't know. Mutated into giants. We can only speculate, right? Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. Okay, so who is the master? The blessed one is the master. The cursed one is the servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. So again, it is our responsibility and moral calling to cover the shortcomings of others if we're talking about mistakes being made. We are not in the killing of cripples business as Christians. After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Remember, he got on the ark at the age of 600. After the flood, he lived 350 years. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Wow. It's quite a story, isn't it? It's quite a story. Well, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I find it very interesting. I know that there is a lot more time we could spend on each piece. That is without question. But we did get through it. We got it in us. We have things to think about and look for as we move forward. So By all means, post your comments and observations, things that maybe I should have mentioned and didn't, because there's that too. I wish you all a very good week, and until we tackle Genesis chapter 10, I bid you all peace.